Warm welcome to this special episode of ETGovernment's Good Governance and Better Security Leadership Series. My name is Anoop Verma. Today, our guest for this special episode is Dr. Babu Srivastava. Dr. Srivastava was earlier the Director General Technology Management at DRDO. Currently, he is a professor of practice at IIT Delhi. He is also a well-regarded expert on defense technology, manufacturing, defense strategy, related issues, and frequently writes on these subjects. The topic of my today's conversation with Dr. Srivastava is the state of defense R&D and manufacturing in India. In FY24, the value of defense production in the country went up to a figure of 1,27,000 crore, reflecting a growth of about 17% over the defense production of the previous financial year. In this period, India also recorded its highest ever defense exports, reaching close to rupees 21,000 crore. These numbers create the impression of a major progress. But going by the size of our population and the overall economy, India should be doing much better in the area of defense R&D, manufacturing, and exports. What are the issues and challenges that the defense ecosystem in the country faces, and what can be done to bring further growth in the defense sector? With his extensive knowledge and experience of the defense sector, Dr. Srivastava is the right person to provide an answer to these questions. Welcome, Dr. Srivastava.
Thank you. Thank you, Abaji.
So, you have served in the DRDO for several decades, and your background is basically defense R&D. How do you view the defense R&D ecosystem in the country in general, and the defense R&D, particularly the defense R&D, and the R&D system in particular?
So, this is a very exciting times actually for the scientists. If you look at the government declarations and government policies for last 10 to 12 years, 2014 it came the government said we will have Make in India program. Naturally, when you make in India, the emphasis will be what we can do ourselves. And then if what we cannot do ourselves, then we get the technology from somewhere. So that was the beginning of the push for the defense R&D in particular and the R&D in the country in general. And then in 2020, I think it came, the Atmanirbharta came. The government announced the Atmanirbharta program. So that means everything critical has to be done by the country. That means all the scientists must put together their efforts and bring out all the critical things that the country requires. And naturally, for these two things to happen, government has pushed a lot of policy changes, a lot of facilitations, ease of doing business, and it is a continuous process. So, in my opinion, a very exciting time, and we must all take advantage of what is being done. What you said in the beginning about the production value and the exports value, they're very exciting numbers if you look at and if you compare over the years. But also if you look at the numbers that we thought we can reach and they are within the reachable limit, they are still elusive. So there is a lot more to be done, not only by the scientists, but also by the people who make policies, by the people who do the testing, by the people who place the orders. So there is a whole lot of things that have been done, and there are a whole lot of things that need to be done. In fact, I've been telling in some forums that in first term of the Modi government, with the program of Make in India, it was reforms 1.0. With Atmanirbharta, it came reforms 2.0. And I think this is the time government must push for reforms 3.0, where all these things are looked at holistically. So that is, I think the government should do in the time to come.
One of the problems is that we are spending too less on defense R&D. If you look at the advanced countries, even China, they are spending about 2% of the GDP. India is 0.6%, which is very, very less. So, the government has its own social security spending, social sector spendings. So, there is limited how much they can put in. Worldwide, the private sector contributes significantly to the defense R&D expenditure. So, what can be done to enable the Indian private sector to invest in R&D and in defense R&D?
So, there are two things actually. If you look at the percentage of GDP, and if you look at the absolute number. So, if you look at our GDP, it is about $3.94 trillion. If you look at China, it is $19+ trillion. US is $26+ trillion. So 2% of 19 trillion and 0.6 or 0.7% of 3.94 trillion. The numbers are, there is a huge gap. And if you look at the way we have spent the money, whatever funding is available in the R&D, the way we have spent the money, it has been very well utilized. There are several things to the credit of the scientific community. All of us know the Chandrayaan. We also know the Operation Shakti, where the satellite was brought down. And likewise, the missiles, and we have the torpedoes, we have the submarines. There are so many, and the nuclear deterrence. There are so many things that the scientific community has done in the country. So the money has been well utilized. But if you look at the volume that the country can achieve by putting in more money, there is a huge potential that is still awaiting to be tapped. The question is the money with the government is naturally limited, so government cannot put all the money, equivalent money of what China or what USA is putting. So naturally, the money has to come from the private sector. Now, private sector, unlike the government sector where you can put the money and it need not be for profit, the private sector thrives on profit. Unless they make profit, they will not be able to invest because they don't get the grant. So we have to create the conditions where the private sector is able to actually get money or get the profit out of whatever the entrepreneurship that they are doing. For example, let us say, we have been talking of FICV for some time, or Future Ready Combat System, FRCV, for some time. But there is no clarity on how many numbers will be procured and how they will be procured. If there are Make 1, Make 2, various, or Make 3, various IDDM programs that the government has, unless the private sector knows that if I am able to do it in this particular time, and this is the kind of numbers that are going to be placed for order, and this is the kind of the profit I'm going to achieve out of this whole business, they will not be able to spend because they have to be answerable to their board members and then the public which invests in them. So we have to create conditions where the ease of doing business is much better than what it is today. And that is what I said earlier, the reform 3.0. We have to make conditions in such a way that the Indian IP, if it is homegrown, it is valued accordingly. Today, the condition is that it's L1 business all the time. And when you buy the already available IPs from somewhere, it might be cheaper than the first time when it is being developed in the country. And that cheaper may not be because it is actually cheap, but that can be because of opportunity. The other countries, because of the geopolitical situations, they may like to choke us. And therefore, they will subsidize whatever technology that they are exporting. Or they may reduce the cost from the actual value. So this opportunity, geopolitical threats, geosecurity threats, all this will create problems for our scientists and our industry to come up. I think government has to do something about it so that the industry becomes profitable and then they start investing back into the R&D. That is where the reform 3.0 will hinge on.
The example that you gave, like Chandrayaan, where we achieved some success, but that is something in which we achieved the success very quickly. So is it the case that from our R&D, we are expecting too quick success? 4 or 5 years, it should yield some result. Whereas R&D, typically, it can take up to 100 years also. For instance, quantum, they started research in 1920s. And it has started, it has not even started giving results now. But in 10 years, it might. So are we expecting too quick results? And we should have some patience and we should be able to spend in R&D that will give result maybe 50 years, 100 years from today. Is that a case?
Correct. Very well said by you. So the technology does not mature immediately. From science to technology to engineering, it takes its own time. And I just give one example. One example you have already given about quantum, 100 years, and we are yet to see the devices or systems. Another example is the stealth technology or the internet, which was started in 1960s.
1960s, yes.
Yeah, 1960s. And it actually became operational for public use in maybe 2000, around 2000 or so. Or the speeds are now increasing every day. So it takes some time to mature the technologies from science to technology and technology to engineering for it to come to the market. What we do in our country is actually what you said, quick result. That's what we are expecting. And when you expect the quick results, you look at the low-hanging fruits. So if you look at, and it's a credit to ISRO, I'm not belittling that credit. If you look at, we took 40 days to reach the Chandrayaan took 40 days to reach the moon. the other countries are able to do in few days. The aim is to reach there. If that is the aim, we can use the technology that we can master on and we can reach there. But unfortunately, in defense, you cannot do that, because if our missile takes 1 day to reach the adversary is going to fire multiple missiles, and few minutes he is going to destroy you. So you need to have the highest technology, the latest technology that is available. So we have to make compromises somewhere, wherever we can, and wherever we cannot, we have to invest money, and we have to initiate the programs right, maybe a decade earlier, or maybe even before that. I just give one example, another example. In US, for example, they have a doctrine, how their defense technology ecosystem is going to work. So in 1970s, they said the priority for the country is, for the USA, is the nuclear defense. And people were working on that. And over the years, they found that they have become masters in that. Then they said about 80s, I think 1980s or close to 90, they said now the focus will be on precision delivery. And if you remember the Iraq war, and before that, few small wars, today the US is master in the precision delivery. Wherever they want, they can pinpoint the delivery of weapon systems. So decade after decade, they give the priority for the technology. And the scientists work for a decade or so, and then the systems start coming. And that is how it happens. In 22, the Americans said that quantum technology is my priority. And this quantum technology is priority, but nothing has come out as far as 22, 25, and 24 is concerned. But if you look at 2030 or something, they will start getting a lot of equipment which will be good for using in the military. So we have to define our priorities well in advance, and then we can say that, yes, we will be able to deliver. That is how I think if we get to what is called moonshot, I think we need to be clear that it takes time. And in addition to time, everything may not succeed. We may learn from failures and then move on. So I think country has to be prepared in Reforms 3.0 for this as well.
So from what you are saying, I think there is some problem in the way we measure our competitiveness in defense R&D. Maybe we should have some other standards for measuring it, not just by the results that we achieve quickly, but from something else.
Yes.
Other criteria.
Yes. That is, I think, very valid question. In R&D, if you look at DARPA, everybody keeps comparing DARPA with DRDO or DRDO with DARPA and says that DARPA has done this, what have you done? But if you look at the success of DARPA, it is only 5 to 10%. Only 5% projects succeed. And 95% or 90% projects don't succeed the way we say succeed. They succeed in the term that they learn from the failures, how things will not work. Therefore, they can be discounted. Those processes can be discounted. And the processes that will work, that will be taken care of in the next generation of systems. So we have to put those things, that have we learned anything from the experimentation that we have done for 2 years or 3 years or 5 years, whatever is project time. And of course, we have to do in 2 or 3 ways. One is the requirement. If I need a 5th generation aircraft, I know what is required to be there in the 5th generation aircraft. So we must evaluate our capability, and we must take on that challenge. And one is the future generation. So I think these two will have different metrics for evaluation. One will not and need not work for the second kind of project. So we will have to devise the category specific metrics for evaluation of project performance and then move on, which is a good point that you brought up.
Another problem that I think this R&D space faces is that even when we succeed in creating some new technology, developing, we are unable to patent it. We are unable to create products based on it on time and push it into the market. So in most advanced countries, defense technology ecosystem plays a significant part in the economy. It generates a lot of wealth, for instance, in the IT sector and in other sectors. So what can the government do to ensure that the defense research and manufacturing becomes a significant driver of the economy in the country?
So I propose this thing. We should not look at the market that our country only has. If you look at most of our companies and DRDO, both, they work only for what is required by Indian Defense Forces. Whereas the world is not working in that way. World is working the whole world is the market for any country. For example, South Korea had the reforms sometime back, couple of years back, and they said the priority customer for me is the South Korean forces, but my market is the worldwide. Likewise, if we also do, the whole of world is my market, and my priority customer is my Indian forces. In that case, whatever the Indian forces require, I will prioritize, and wherever other capabilities are available, the capacity is available, I will be utilizing that for the export purposes. One example I want to give here: LCA 4.5 generation, or close to 5th generation, but not 5th, 4.5 generation. We have not been able to export so far, even though we have been talking to multiple countries. But Pakistan has been able to export a 4th generation aircraft to African countries. Now, we have the technology of 4th generation because we have already made 4.5. If we had the opportunity available for our HAL or ADA or DRDO to make the 4th generation also for export, we would have been able to export to multiple countries. Our standing is much better than Pakistan's. So if we can allow our processes, this can allow the companies to work, or the organizations to work on something which is not extremely state of art, something which is less than state of art. If our processes allow that, we will get huge market, huge export market for something which is not required by our forces, but required by others. So I think we need to again look at the business process that we have in the whole system. This is, again, as I said earlier, this is also an agenda for 3.0, reforms 3.0.
And you earlier pointed out that the size, there is a huge difference in the size of India's economy than that of China and US. So even if they are spending 2%, it actually translates into a huge figure in context of the Indian economy. So in that scenario, is there any hope of now India catching up with China in the R&D space? Till 1980, Indian economy is actually much bigger than Chinese economy. But since then, they have done without, even though they are a communist system, perhaps because of that, they don't have to worry about, they don't have too many arguments, they just push through.
So actually, in R&D, saying catching up is a very difficult question to answer. And we need not actually get into competition with anyone. I was just doing a little bit survey a few months back. And we found that by 2050, the defense export market is likely to be of $220 billion. Today, we are exporting about how much? Maybe 2.4 billion or 2.5 billion. And the market is about 100 billion, so about 2%, less than 2% in that range. If we can just focus on the plate, and today most of the export is subsystems. We are 40% of our export is the subsystems. We are part of the global chain, supply chain. So if we can upgrade this to systems, as I said, 4th generation aircraft, or maybe conventional submarines, if we can get into those bigger platforms, and even if we give to one country, one platform, it is still huge money that we make. There's a huge amount of money that we can make when we export the system. But if we start exporting the assemblies and components, then the value reduces. So I think we have to move up in the value chain. And if we are able to grab at least 15-20% of the market slowly, that will be very good for us. The advantage India has as against other countries, that our standing in quality is good as against the Chinese or Pakistanis or other competitors. And we have some good friends also available who can help us. At least as of now, we have that aura that is available with
us. One thing is, should we focus more on science instead of just technology? Because like quantum and internet, earlier it was a science. They were not hoping to create any product. They just pursued the pure sciences. We are not doing enough in the pure sciences area also. So unless the pure sciences do something, maybe our technology might not take off, technology R&D. Is that a case?
Yeah, that's a concern actually. And this concern also hinges on the amount that we spend on R&D. It's 0.6% or 0.7%. the amount that the university system gets is very, very meager. And in that meager amount that our professors are working and the PhD scholars work, naturally we are not able to give as much output as it is required. So this is one, but we have to definitely work in the university system. And that is why if you look at the technology organizations, scientific organizations like ISRO, DRDO, Atomic Energy, CSIR, there is a very close working relationship between various IITs, IISc, ISERs, and university systems in the country. And these organizations are putting their scientists in the university system. University of process are going to the laboratories, and joint projects are being conceived for something which is going to come in, let us say, 5 years hence or 10 years hence. We are now conceiving the projects and we are putting up that. We are a little late in doing that. We should have done it 10 years back or 15 years back, but never better. Whenever we can come, that is better rather than never coming. So this is happening. And if you look at the successes also, when I was in DRDO, and this information maybe 1.5 years old, they would have moved on by this time. There was a good success at making the photonic ICs at Indian Institute of Science for making the radars. If you use the photonic ICs for radar, you reduce the whole bulk of the cables that are being used. And therefore, earlier what I was not able to put on aircraft, I will be able to put on aircraft. So not only the scientific capability of IISc, also the capability of forces gets enhanced that much when we translate the science from the laboratory to the field. So this is what the working together of NRDE, DRDO, and Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore brought out. Likewise, there was another company in Pune. When I was in DRDO at that time, we had worked with them. One pump they made, the imported pump had the life of only 100 hours of working. What our company made was 800 hours, 1,000 hours. So that way, the capability, the requirement of repairs, etc., that all gets enhanced if we have our own science. Because we had our own material, because we had our own engineering, then we had the capability to machine everything and integrate that together and test that together, we were able to do all this. So I think we need to invest more on putting up state-of-art infrastructure for R&D, for manufacturing, and then testing. And the laboratory scientists and the professors have to work together. One good proposal came from IIT Delhi director. So this is about 1.5 years again back, where he said, let us put our scientists and professors in each other's facilities. And when they visit each other, call the scientists as visiting faculty to IIT, and the professor going to the laboratory is the visiting scientist there. So the movement becomes easier, and the facility utilization and then accreditation and then understanding what is required, that all becomes good. And likewise, the forces and DRDO, and forces and DRDO and industry, all these three should also move very closely together. And that is, people are calling what is known as military-civil fusion. That is how the military-civil fusion is going to come. Not just by putting the military people in DRDO or in industry or vice versa. We have to move together and understand each other's perspective to move forward.
So I think you just mentioned is we should have a military-industrial complex.
Correct.
It's academia, military industrial complex, which the Western countries have. That's the model that they have found. There should be fusion between the civilian and the defense side.
Correct.
R&D side, academic side. Only then we can make the significant progress. Now, the Government of India has set up the target of 5 billion exports in 2025 and 8 billion in 2028. So are we on way to achieving these targets? Or are these targets achievable, or can we exceed these targets?
I have my doubt. And since I had my doubt, I also go to Vivekananda Foundation. I have affiliation there, Vivekananda International Foundation. So we did a very comprehensive study some time back. I have my doubt because as of 2024 March, we are at about 50% in export target and about 45% in our manufacturing target. So if we are at 45% and 50% 1 year hence. Naturally, in 1 year, we cannot jump so much. With the way we are going up, maybe 16 to 17%, we will not be able to reach there. But that is why we need some more reform. Whatever we have done so far has actually given us push. There is no doubt in that. But that push is not enough for us to reach where we want to reach. And if you extend this 5 billion and 8 billion to 2047, in my opinion, it should be something like 35 or 40 billion. And if we have to reach those figures from 9 to 10 times or 12 times, we need to actually really push the policies and the technical people to reach there. And we have to reach, I mean, if we miss that bus again, this dream of becoming a developed nation by 2047 will only remain dream. We should not miss that bus at any cost. We must push for it.
In the media and some of the reports, we come up with very fantastic numbers about the potential size of the defense industry by 2030 and after that. But realistically speaking, what is the size of the defense industry that we should aim for by 2030 and at the time of the Viksit Bharat that Prime Minister has declared in 2047?
So my logic is on a very simple ratio basis. We are 7th largest country in the world. If we look at the area, we are 7th largest in the world. And we are aiming to be 3rd largest economy by maybe next 2-3 years. And by 2047, the prediction is about $35 to $45 trillion, somewhere around there we should reach. Exactly how much and all we will come to know, but that is the prediction. We should be about 35 to 45, somewhere in between that. And if we are going to be 3rd largest economy, we must also aim for everything at least 3rd, if not better. And if the defense export is going to be $100 billion, I must aim for 15 billion. And if it is going to be 200 billion, I must aim for 30. So if you ask me how much I should set the goal, I will set the goal of 30 billion for export by 2047. And if you also look at if you do a little bit of analysis of these countries, the major exporting countries, they absorb within their system about 6 times what they produce, what they export. So 6 to 7 times. So if you do that, then the military industry complex becomes something like somewhere about $250 to $300 billion. So I think we should aim for that kind of thing. And then, of course, the government has to look at these numbers. They have to analyze with respect to policies, with respect to the money that they can pump in, and with respect to other export facilitation that they can bring in, with respect to the military civilian fusion that they can bring in. All these policy issues they have to look at and then fix the numbers. But as an independent person, my wish will be that I must reach $300 billion of military industrial complex, and something like $30 billion of export by 2047.
That seems like a good number if we can achieve it.
Yes.
I think
I call it aspirational number. I must aspire for it. If I can't get it, even then I must
by itself is a very, very aspirational thing. That I think this is the first time that India has done a long-term planning.
Correct.
25 years in advance. Chinese had a 100-year plan, and US, they typically have 90 years plans. Even the private sector companies in US, they do 99 years planning. So, but this is the first time we have done a 25-year planning, which is something that is to be, to credit goes to the government, this government.
And one good thing is that everybody is galvanized by these numbers and this whole idea of being a developed nation.
Yes.
Everybody is galvanized. Everybody wants to be a part of developed country.
Yes.
That is something good that has come in.
Thank you, sir.
I keep telling my people whosoever I meet, today we are in the aspirational phase, but we must become inspirational. We must inspire others. We must reach that performance where we are able to inspire others.
Yes.
That is where we have to, I think, move forward. That is the goals we have to set for each one of us, and collectively we must meet all.
Thank you, sir. That's a good note on which we can end the conversation. Thank you for talking to me. It was very nice talking to you and very informative also.
Thank you, Verma ji. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.